Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October 21st edition of the Decaturish.com Twitch Show, our now weekly Twitch show. We do a broadcast every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, unless we need to do a special broadcast or something like that. Our guests today are the co-founders of GeorgiaVoter.guide, and they are Margaret Arnett and Derek Spranzi. How are y'all today?
Doing great.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. And our elections reporter, Logan Ritchie, is also joining us today. Logan, how are you?
Good, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. So today we're going to talk about the November 3rd elections. We're going to kind of set your expectations for what's going to happen on election night. Spoiler alert, we're probably not going to know a whole lot about the results unless Donald Trump loses Georgia. Then we can assume that he lost everything. I'm kidding. We probably won't know all that. But first, I wanted to take a moment to pray for Rudy Giuliani. Rudy's having some trouble right now. He's in a bad way. If you've seen Rudy out and about, take his cell phone away and call for help. Get some help for Rudy. He needs it. Rudy, we're all rooting for you, buddy. Hang in there. So tell me about GeorgiaVoter.guide. Now, first of all, I didn't know that .guide was actually an extension you can get. So while you're explaining that, I'm going to go register my URL on .guide to make sure I own it before somebody redirects it to a site that Rudy Giuliani owns. So if somebody could, Margaret or Derek, if one of you want to jump in and tell us about your site and how that got started.
You want to go for it, Margaret?
Sure. So Derek and I have both been involved with voter registration and voter education for a number of years. We're both very passionate about it, and we basically saw that there was a void in the link in the chain of the process. And that was that we would register voters and we would give them a bunch of information before they left our voter registration table. And we would be giving them a bunch of different websites that they would need to go to in order to get various sectors of information, whether it be where to find information on how to get an ID that they would need to vote, or where they would go to find out about where to get a ride to the polls, or how to find out information about an absentee ballot, or various different pieces of information. And there really wasn't a one-stop shop for all of this information that they could find that was factual and up to date and that sort of thing. And so we said, well, let's just create one. And so we created GeorgiaVoter.guide, and it is a comprehensive, nonpartisan, up-to-date, factual, one-stop shop for everything that you need to know about voting in Georgia.
So what do we need to know about voting in Georgia, Margaret?
Well, I think this show is only about an hour long or so, and so...
Give me the abridged version. Give me the Cliff Notes version. As you can see, this is a wonderful photo that Dean Hess took of, this was the first day of early voting at the Board of Elections office in DeKalb County. As you can see, people clearly love standing in lines. That's why they decided to show up and stand in line so they could vote. I also think it happened to help that it was Columbus Day. A lot of people had the day off and decided to go vote that day. So it's quite a line. And how are wait times generally around the county? I hear the Agnes Scott site is pretty quick. I hear in South DeKalb not so much, right? There's been longer lines in South DeKalb. What's going on there?
Yeah, unfortunately, that has been the case. I do know that the county is working diligently to get that problem fixed and the inequity of that fixed. I know that there have been board members specifically that have been addressing that with the elections office, and to try and get that inequity in the various parts of the county equalized, and that they are working on getting that specifically worked out. But ways that voters can get the lines reduced is actually really simple. First of all, if they are going specifically to vote in person, they need to go to the My Voter page, which is www.myvoter.gov. www.mvp.sos.ga.gov, and they need to go and look on their sample ballots. And the reason is that once you actually do get up to the polling booth, then you can just make your selections really quick. Then you'll already know who you're voting for. You're not going to get up to the polling booth and be seeing that ballot for the very first time. You'll already be able to make all your choices on your candidates in advance. You can actually take your sample ballot and write down your choices on a piece of paper, because when you get up to the polling booth, you can't pull out your phone when you're in the polling booth. That's against Georgia law. And so we actually have an article on GeorgiaVoter.guide that explains all of this. It takes you through the steps to actually find the sample ballot information on the MVP page. And so you can go to GeorgiaVoter.guide and go, it's actually right on the front page of the website that will take you to the sample ballot information. And if you're a voter that prefers to vote absentee and you change your mind and you want to go to the polls instead, we have an article that's right on the front page, and it says, if you have lost your ballot, you need to cancel your ballot, and all that stuff. There's an article on the front page for that too. So it explains everything.
MVP is a really important resource for any Georgia voter to get to know, because one of the problems that we do have in Georgia is that we're very aggressive with cleaning the voter rolls. And so people will often get kicked off of the voter rolls and not realize it. And MVP is is the site where you can go and check your registration, make sure that it's still active. You can see if your polling place has changed. Like Margaret said, you can check your sample ballots. You can even look and find out what congressional district you're in or what state house district you're in. And so there's a lot of really good information there. And a lot of people really don't know much about the MVP site. And this year, and it's particularly important because of the number of people that are doing absentee voting. That's where you go to track your ballot to make sure that it's been accepted and received by the county after you return it. So that's a really important site, especially this year, for people to get to know.
So how do I take a selfie of myself while I'm voting? Can I not do that? Is that the thing? Because I've been doing that, but that's illegal. I mean, are we talking like felony illegal, or what am I facing? I've never done that.
Don't do that, Dan.
But
Don't
I've wanted
do that.
to do that, I wanted to be like, I'm voting. Look at me.
It's not a felony. It's
Okay.
actually a misdemeanor, but it is against Georgia code.
All right.
So
Poll worker potentially.
the poll worker will probably come over and have words with you.
God bless our poll workers, by the way. Very tough gig, especially this year. Putting yourself on the front lines, literally, of democracy. So shout out to anybody who's being a poll worker this year. God bless you. You should get a what now? Yeah, I mean, God, you need a medal or a gift card or something to make it worth your time. Logan Ritchie is our elections reporter. I've sent her against her will to cover the elections board, and she has gritted her teeth and done a pretty damn good job, I would say, of keeping us apprised of all the shenanigans at the elections board. Tell us about today's meeting, Logan. I hear it was a long meeting.
It was a very long meeting. It was a 4.5-hour meeting. I think that is a testament to what we talked about last week on this show about the infighting between the board and the department. We had a couple commissioners on the call today, and the COO of DeKalb, Zach Williams, was also on the call. So, I mean, these meetings go in waves. It kind of takes you on an emotional journey, honestly. It's very frustrating and hard to listen to at times. But I think that the bottom line today was National Vote at Home Institute, which has been trying to help DeKalb County since February, finally has gotten a contract, finally has gotten all of their people authorized to be at Memorial Drive in place working there, but they still are missing major pieces of information from DeKalb County Elections Department. And that's really frustrating to hear as a voter, never mind, just somebody who lives in the county. So I think that, it was a tricky one today, but so there's a lot of fighting and sometimes in a nice way and sometimes not in a nice way. It's just tricky.
So if you're just joining us, whoa, what the hell was that? Hello?
What happened?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's like I heard an echo of myself, and it was like the voice of God or something. That's weird. Don't do that again, whoever did that. That freaked me out. So if you're just joining us, we are talking to the founders of GeorgiaVoter.guide, an election website that keeps you in the loop about everything that's going on related to our elections. If you have a comment, take a minute, create yourself a Twitch account, give us a follow, and jump into our chats, and we'll be happy to take questions from you. Our experts will be happy to answer those. So please let us know what's on your mind. So Logan, how would you describe the power dynamic over there? Who is running things at the DeKalb Elections Board these days?
It feels like Sam Tillman and Erica Hamilton.
Now,
Sam Tillman is the board. Yeah, Sam Tillman's the board chair, and Erica Hamilton is the director of the elections department. She's got about 15 years of experience. I think she said 10 of that was with the county, 5 with the state. Does that sound right, Margaret?
Yeah, she was with the Secretary of State's office previously.
So this is, she's not a new kid on the block. She's been around. She's seen it. She's seen a bunch, obviously. She's been through at least 2 presidential elections. So she and Sam Tillman seem to have a history. I'm not sure exactly what that is. And then there's a couple people that try to be neutral, like Balky Vu. He's a pretty neutral guy. He tries to balance everything out. I think that Susan Motter does a pretty good job of staying as neutral as possible. And then there are a couple other board members that it's pretty clear which sort of side they're on. So, that's the power dynamic. It's a pretty big struggle. These people just don't have the same communication style. They don't have the same priorities. There's a lot going on. It's probably understaffed. That's the situation.
I read your stories, and all right, somebody's got me on in the background. Somebody's got me on a computer. Anyway, I read your stories, and I get the sense that I feel like the elections board is kind of in over its head a little bit. Is that true, or is that just my interpretation?
I think it's true. They clearly need more leadership and more fluency between the 2 groups. And it's a really strange position to be in because there's a board overseeing a department. That's pretty unusual in the DeKalb County government. I don't think that happens in any other place. So for this to function as a department, but the people who seemingly would be your boss are not really the people who can hire and fire you, it's complicated.
Do you know anything about the appointment process for the voters? One of our Twitch viewers is asking.
I think Margaret knows.
Yeah, so the law actually changed, I think it was about a year ago, where the board members, and actually I'm slightly confused on this because the law did just recently change, but I know that in the past, in the last term of the board members, that that Sam Tillman was actually appointed by a judge. I do know that factually, and so that was new with this last term of the board members. I do know that was that did create some raised eyebrows, and so that was of concern for some voters, and so that did create some uniqueness, because in the past it was that there were 2 There were 2 board members that were from the Democratic Party, and then there were 2 board members who were from the Republican Party, and then they would choose the 5th member, which was neutral, and then that's what was done previously. And then that was not done this last term because the law changed. So that was unique.
So I may have missed this. Who appoints the 5th member now?
A judge.
A judge. And who's the judge in this case?
I don't remember her name.
Okay. So judge, and that was because of a change in state law. That's interesting. So
and according to a source of mine that's in state government, Sam Tillman's just not an easy character to go along with. I mean, he's got a reputation that precedes him as being tough and kind of cranky, and he's going to stand his ground. So
fair enough. Well, I can definitely pick up on some of that from the meeting coverage. All of our elections coverage, by the way, is at Decaturishvotes.com. All of Logan's stories are there. Logan has been doing just a terrific job keeping up with the elections board, so her stories are worth a read. Please check them out. We did have some things that Margaret and Derek wanted to cover specifically today, so I'll go ahead and get to those. What is the best way to return an absentee ballot? And I'll tell you what I did personally, and you can tell me if I was wrong or not. I got my ballot. I requested it. I waited anxiously to get it. It finally came. So the first batch of those ballots was mailed from Arizona, because there were so many requests ahead of the election. It took a lot of people didn't realize that. So I got mine. My wife and I voted. We went, I think because of a conversation I had with you, Margaret. My wife and I both went to the elections board. We each got out of our vehicle to drop our ballot off in the drop box, and we left. I checked. Our votes have been accepted. I keep checking the site every other day to make sure it's still accepted, to make sure somebody didn't change their mind about it. I don't know if I'm just being paranoid. I like to check and see if my door is locked a lot too. So, what is did I do it right? Did I get that right? I hope I did.
Yeah, so this year, really returning your ballot via Dropbox is the best way. And we've all heard about the challenges that the postal system is going through currently. It's taking a while for ballots to get to voters because, as you mentioned, they were being mailed from Arizona. Fortunately, ballots that are mailed after October 16th are now coming from the local counties, so they don't have quite so far to travel. But it's taking a little longer for ballots to get there. And then if you're mailing them back, our advice and the advice of a lot of other folks out there was that yesterday was really kind of the last safest day to put your ballot in the mail in order to ensure that it gets there by November 3rd, because your ballot must be received by 7 p.m. on November 3rd to be counted. Some folks may have heard about an extension to that was won in court, but that was overturned because the state appealed it to the 11th Circuit, and the 11th Circuit said, nope, you're not going to have an extension anymore, so it has to be there on November 3rd by 7 p.m. And the good thing about the drop boxes is they're secure, they're collected by elections employees, so they're taken directly to the Board of Elections office. You don't have to have postage. You don't have to worry about it getting lost in the mail. In many counties in Georgia, you can also take your ballot directly to the elections office itself to turn in. Not all counties do actually have drop boxes. Sometimes the elections office is the drop box itself. And so it's just a much easier and quicker and safer way to get your ballot back this year.
So it sounds like I did it right.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. So I was right, for the record. If anybody has questions, I did it the right way. So if you want to know how to vote, just ask now. So that's good intel. So is there an official? Because I wouldn't mind publishing a story that said, hey, you might not want to mail your ballot now. You might want to go ahead and drop that sucker in the drop box. Is there an official source on that, or is that just your intuition, or?
A lot of that is just coming from, the amount of time that we have seen the mail taking to even go locally. I mean, here's an example. When I when I mailed my ballot in for the August 11th runoff, it took 9 days to go 3 miles from downtown Decatur to Memorial Drive. And so,
That's scary.
yeah. So, and remember, it's 14 days to election day from yesterday. We've got 2, Sundays in between there. So you really only have 12 days for mail to be in transit. It is taking longer right now. So, if you put it in the mail today, will it probably get there? Sure, it probably will. But, every day that you wait, if you have to mail it back, it just increases the chances that it may not get there in time.
Yeah, don't mail your ballots, people. Go take them to the elections office. Easy enough to find. You can also get free compost while you're there, which is cool. They have like a little compost section. So I'm gonna definitely get my compost when I do my garden, because I imagine DeKalb County has the best compost of any compost. But you can take your ballot to the elections board. I'm paranoid. I didn't want to take it to any other drop box. Does it matter what drop box you take it to? Because I'm kind of paranoid about taking it to any other drop box.
It just has to be in your county.
Okay.
It just has to be in your county. And the thing is that in the June elections, there were 8,000 ballots that were unable to be counted because they arrived after 7 p.m. on election day. And so that was 8,000 votes that they just had to throw away. Now, I don't know the statistics on if that would have tipped any elections, but for as sacred as the vote is, I mean, just do what you need to do in order to get your vote in before 7 p.m. on election day.
So 8,000 votes like throughout the state?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were talking about one county. I was like, what the hell county was that? Not DeKalb. That's good.
Why don't we?
It's over. Yeah. It's just, and that's only what they
That gives me
figured for the
heartburn just
counties
hearing
that
about that.
reported. Yeah.
Ugh.
I think if you want to be safest and you live in DeKalb County, just take it to Memorial Drive. They have 3 drop boxes there. They are emptying them multiple times a day. That's where all the processing is being done. Just go straight to the source.
Yes.
Yep.
Please do that.
To add on that, one question we've actually gotten a lot recently is whether or not you have to have a stamp to return a ballot via the drop box. And this, seems like, an obvious answer, but a lot of people are asking that question. And so the answer is no, you do not need a stamp. A question that we are also getting a lot of is how long should it take for me to expect my ballot to be shown as received an MVP after I put it in the drop box. And right now, it looks like it's taking most people about a week. So for example, I think, I can't remember if it was DeKalb or Fulton, but one of the counties right now said that they're basically, today they are processing ballots from, that they received Tuesday of last week. And so it's taking them a little longer just because of the number of ballots that they're getting back in order to, to get all those marked. So if you don't see it as soon as you get home from dropping it in the box, don't worry, just give it about a week and it'll show up.
So I do want to talk about provisional ballots, but before we get there, I want to talk about people who have requested the absentee ballot. Their absentee ballot never came for whatever reason, or they had second thoughts, they got it, and they said, I want to go vote early. How does that work? If you want to not cast an absentee ballot that you've requested and you want to vote in person either on election day or via early voting.
So if
So,
go for
go
it.
ahead, Derek.
Well, I was going to say that for the, if you actually get your ballot, but you decide that you want to vote in person instead, bring it with you. Because it's very easy at that point to just hand it to the poll workers. They'll spoil it, they'll take it, and they'll give you a card so that you can vote on one of the machines. If you do not have your ballot, if it never showed up at all, then what you would have to do is go and sign an affidavit when you go to vote, saying that you never got your ballot, and the county will also have to cancel it. So this was one of the reasons that the lines on Monday and Tuesday were really long, was because a lot of people were bringing their ballots in, did not have their ballots, wanted to go vote in person, and they were having to call down to the county for each voter in order to get those ballots canceled. And actually, on the Board of Registrations and Elections meeting for DeKalb today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret or Logan, but I believe that they said that they're actually now at the early voting locations, they're able to cancel them right there without having to contact Memorial Drive in order to help speed that up. But that will not be available on election day, when people have to go to their polling places to vote.
Yeah, during that part of the meeting, I was multitasking, so I wasn't exactly clear on all of that. And I actually spoke to one official from DeKalb this afternoon, and he was trying to get clarification on it as well from Erica Hamilton. So he advised me that voters should just watch the DeKalb County elections website. As soon as they get clarification, they're going to post all that information there. So then voters have, the official word on it. So I know what you're talking about on that part of the board meeting as well, Derek. But I think that DeKalb is actually trying to get their I's dotted and T's crossed on that, because as with many things that are happening right now with the election and several different aspects of DeKalb County at this point, we're just trying to get everything worked out.
Well, Erica Hamilton, the director of the elections department, said that you can call the office. And one of the board members responded, that was news to me. But I think the safest thing is to do what Derek said. If you have it, bring it with you. If you don't have it, you'll sign an affidavit saying that you have not turned it in and you are not going to vote by absentee ballot.
Correct.
Question from a reader. Will the drop boxes be available right up to Election Day?
Yes. The drop boxes will be available right up until Election Day. However, voters need to know that at 6:59:59, those babies will be locked. And I have even heard Sam Tillman say during a board meeting that they are going to have additional personnel standing there, so then there will never be any problems with voters trying to create an issue, trying to shove additional absentee ballots into the boxes after 7:00. And so those absentee ballot drop boxes will be locked exactly at 7 p.m. So you cannot vote after the polls close, basically.
Yeah, please don't wait till Election Day to do all this, people. Please, for the love of God. Don't wait, please. This whole conversation's making me feel real anxious. Should I feel anxious? Because I'm kind of anxious.
Well,
yes.
and to your point, Derek and I have had the conversation, which is very important. Derek, explain what you were saying about how waiting causes problems.
Yeah, I mean, the longer that you wait to vote, the more likely you are to encounter a problem that you may not have time to fix. As an example, let's say you are planning to vote on Election Day, but the weekend before, you lose your wallet and you don't have an ID now that you can go vote. So you're going to have to go vote provisionally. And this may get us into the provisional conversation, but you will have to go within 3 days by Friday, November 6th and show ID at the county, but you may not have ID to show. You may find that you've been inappropriately removed from the rolls and that they can reinstate you, but if you wait until Election Day, that may be more difficult to get fixed. We're living in obviously a pandemic. one of the things we need to think about right now is, are you going to feel well enough to go vote in 2 weeks? Could you potentially be sick? Could a family member of yours be sick? 2020 is a hell of a year. Don't leave it up to chance, because you don't know what the next 2 weeks may hold for you. If you're sitting here thinking about it and you've got the time, just go ahead and go vote and get it over with, because you're, like I said, is the longer you wait, the more likely you are to run into an issue that you may not be able to solve.
So, let's talk about provisional ballots. What is a provisional ballot, and how are those handled?
So a provisional ballot is, you end up voting on a provisional ballot if you go up to the poll worker when you first enter and something has taken place where you are not allowed to vote on an actual ballot. That could be that you are in the wrong polling place, or you don't appear on the voting rolls, or you don't have the proper ID, or any number of things could take place. But basically, the poll worker has identified a problem and is not issuing you a voter card for some reason, and has flagged you as having an issue, or let's call it an issue, that says that you need to vote on a provisional basis, and your vote is going to be flagged as provisional until you can clean up that problem. And then once you clean up the problem, then your vote will be considered to be an actual vote. Is that an accurate description, Derek?
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest reasons that people end up having to vote provisionally is because they end up in the wrong precinct.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, if you're registered in DeKalb, but for whatever reason you go to a precinct in Gwinnett to go vote, Gwinnett is going to let you vote provisionally. I mean, anybody can vote provisionally. But what's going to happen is, because you are not registered in Gwinnett County, that ballot will get tossed out. There's no way, to cure that if you don't have that residency. If you go to a different polling place within DeKalb where you're not registered to vote, assuming that you are registered in DeKalb and everything else is fine, then your ballot will be counted for the races that you're eligible to vote for. And I would again put a shout out to MVP there, because you also check your provisional ballot status on MVP as well as your absentee ballot status. So if you have to vote provisionally, you'll definitely want to check MVP to make sure that that your provisional ballot was cast. But in most cases, whatever kind of problem you run into, you've got 3 days in order to solve. So if you didn't have your ID, you're going to have to go show it within 3 days to get that cured. And if people, just kind of go, okay, well, I voted and, I kind of think I'm done, then they may not have their ballot counted. It just depends on the particular circumstance that somebody runs into.
Has there ever been an election that has turned on a provisional ballot, or a handful of provisional ballots?
So there have been elections that have come down real close, and when they start counting the provisionals, I mean, I don't have factual numbers in front of me, but the elections that have come down incredibly close, they don't certify elections until the provisionals have counted, because, as Derek was saying, you have 3 days after casting a provisional ballot for you to cure, that's the term, you have to cure your provisional ballot. And so the elections, the Board of Elections is not going to certify the election until about a week after the election takes place. And that is because they have to allow time for voters to cure their ballots, their provisional ballots. So, I mean, to answer your question, maybe, I don't know.
And in a really close race, I mean, you can definitely imagine a scenario where you may have attorneys for one candidate or another who are really, really questioning provisional ballots and whether or not, those voters are eligible to have their provisional ballot counted or not.
So let's talk about our expectations for election night, November 3rd. How much alcohol should I buy? Uh, should I plan to drink on multiple days or just election night? Like when are we gonna know when this is over?
Don't
And
even
you can't. You are going to have reporters in the field. You're going to have to stay sober. I'm sorry.
Actually, I mean, I might have somebody covering an election, but our local races are not. We don't really have any contested local races in our readership area, at any rate. So I might have somebody. But our day should be done by 5. I hope. If it's not, we're gonna have a talk. But I think I'm gonna have somebody out, and I might have Dean go out and shoot a photo. Dean's our photographer. He's great. But no, I actually will not be drinking on election night. But I am curious as to when we're gonna know what the results are. I mean, my assumption, and assumptions are bad, but my assumption was we should know the results in Georgia fairly quickly, quicker than the other states, and that if Donald Trump loses Georgia, then it's safe to assume he's lost a lot of other states that he needs to win. But I don't know how safe that assumption is.
So it depends on what races you're talking about, because if you're talking about local races, like you were saying, it's going, okay. So first of all, nothing is happening on November 3rd.
Okay.
November 3rd, everybody can go to sleep at their normal bedtime. Nothing is happening November 3rd. I can absolutely 100% guarantee you that.
Okay.
Okay. Here's why. Because due to COVID, every single state has had an enormous amount of absentee ballot voting. And so therefore, for instance, just take Georgia alone. We've had more people voting by absentee in this year alone than we have in any other year in Georgia history. And so we can start opening up those ballots 2 weeks prior to Election Day. Now that means that they can start opening them up, but they can't actually start tabulating those things until 7 p.m. that night. But then you're going to have absentee ballots that they need to review and everything else. So nothing is going to happen November 3rd, because then, to your point, we're going to have provisional ballots and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then you have other states. There are actually 8 states in the country that cannot even open up their envelopes on their absentee ballots until after their polls close. So think about the millions and millions and millions of people in those 8 states that are going to be casting their ballots via absentee. And those states have to sit there and wait until they pick up their letter openers and start opening up those absentee ballots. I mean, it's insane.
We're talking about states like, I think Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, maybe 2 of those.
Oh, no.
Now, there are some states like Florida, for example, right, which is going to obviously be very pivotal, as it always is, where they count absentee ballots as they get them.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to count their election day votes pretty quick. So
that's the case in Georgia too, right? They count those as they get them, right?
No, they're only able.
No.
So in a typical year, they will only start counting them on election night, like some of these other states we talked about. The state election board this year said, well, because of the number of absentee ballots that we've got coming back, we need to start at least scanning them in earlier. So
Right.
They're actually able to start opening them up, scanning them in, but like Margaret said, they can't tabulate them. They can't actually produce any vote totals until election night. So, we'll probably have some absentee returns on election night for Georgia, but we're certainly not going to have them all. And, if Florida is just a blowout one way or another, you may get, a little bit of an idea of how the national, at least presidential race is going. But the really important thing is that this year that all of these votes get counted. We've gotten so used to just having these election night calls, and just due to the realities of 2020, that's not going to be as easy this year. And we should be really suspicious of people who are trying to, claim victory without all the votes being counted, and just try and pressure our local and state officials to just count those ballots so that we that everyone's voice is heard, and that we have confidence in the outcome, and that all voters have had their chance to speak their mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, is what kind of shenanigans can people get up to with that kind of a delay? Like what's going to happen? I'm kind of scared.
Well, I think this would be a good time to talk a little bit about the numbers, especially in DeKalb County. So part of this meeting earlier today, the National Vote at Home Institute consultant, Hillary Hall, said that in DeKalb County, 166,000, almost 167,000 ballots were requested, and 75,000 have been returned. So she also said that almost 12,000 have been canceled, which means 12,000 people got a ballot or didn't get their ballot and decided to go vote. So that's just in DeKalb County. That's an enormous amount of people that decided, forget this absentee thing, I'm just going to go in person.
Well, and to your point, it's just amazing how many people heard disinformation campaigns, fear mongering, and scare tactics, whether it be about the Postal Service, whether it be about mail-in ballots, whether it be about, anything. And it could have been about drop boxes. I mean, all of this stuff was disinformation, and changed their mind about how they wanted to vote. And I'm absolutely for however anybody wants to vote, whatever their method is of choice, go for it. As long as you vote, that's all that matters. But the changing of the mind is the part that's made this very complicated. And it's creating a lot of angst in people, and it's creating a lot of confusion for the elections offices around the country, because the plans that they made on staffing and expectations on this, that, or the next thing have now all been thrown to the wind, because how the Vote at Home, how Hillary from Vote at Home was saying, we were planning for this and now it's this. That all gets very messy.
And, in talking with voters, we can also kind of hear this mental calculus that's going on of, well, if I do it this way, is it, I think it's more likely to be counted than if I do it this way. And then, I'm going to run into this problem if I vote this way. And like Margaret said, the thing is, just go vote. In whatever way that you choose to do it, go vote. We're talking about a lot of problems here too, but the truth is that most people do vote successfully and without any problems. We live in a state where you are more likely to have a problem, perhaps, than others. But for the most part, most people vote and they do it successfully. So just, choose whatever works best for you, whatever you're most comfortable with, and go do that. But, if you're sitting there waiting at home for, if you've been waiting for your ballot for the last 3 weeks and it's the middle of next week and you still haven't gotten it, you probably should go vote in person, just to make sure that you're not going to, sit there and wait to the last minute and not get your absentee ballot because of the Postal Service problem.
Is there a scenario that's possible like the one we saw in 2000 where someone can declare victory and use that as a means to stop vote counting? Beyond, because obviously the outstanding votes are going to be a bigger factor this year than they are in previous years, but what are the implications if one candidate or the other says, I won, there's no need to keep going on with this, I won? What could happen?
I don't anticipate that at all. Okay. I think that, first of all, I think that I think that we learned from that And that I think that people have already realized that due to COVID and the number of people that have been requesting absentee ballots, and the fact that people have already realized that that scenario might play out and have had time to foresee that that might be a possibility. And so election officials have already seen that, you know, we're not going to do that because the vote is sacred and we're not going to take away people's votes, that they're already preparing for that. Whereas in 2000, that had never happened before. And so, you know, Florida made a knee-jerk reaction and just said, you know, Broward County just said, no, okay, well, we're just going to stop counting. And they obviously should not have done that. So I don't foresee that happening this year.
So we have one of our readers has a question. The reader says, broader question, will this election prove to be transformative in terms of how we vote in the future, or will we regress to the abominable mean, low turnout, continued voter suppression tactics?
I was actually thinking about that today. I am really, really, really hoping that, because, for instance, Derek, you were talking about the percentage of turnout today on a group chat we were having.
Yeah,
It was something like 46% over 2016 or something.
we're approaching 50% of the entire voter turnout for the 2016 election in Georgia as of now.
It's just incredible turnout. And so I'm really, really hoping, and only time will tell, but I'm really, really hoping that people have suddenly figured out that elections do have consequences, and that showing up is exactly how you take control of the future in this country, whichever side of the aisle you're on. I mean, your vote is your voice. That seems cliche, but no matter which side of the aisle you are on, the only way that you make change for whichever way you want this change to be is to show up at the polls and cast your ballot. And, you know, presidential elections are always the most well-attended elections, but actually the most consequential elections. And so everybody's focused on November 3rd. Everybody is.
I want you to
but
say
you know
that
what?
again because you cut out. The most consequential elections are...
The most consequential elections are actually runoff elections. And so everybody's focused on November 3rd. But we actually have a runoff election that is going to come out of the November 3rd election, and that is on December 1st. And so everybody's focused on November 3rd, but they need to be focused on December 1st as well. And after November 1st, we also have a runoff election on January 5th, which I actually think is maybe even more consequential than November 3rd, because on January 5th, we're going to be electing a U.S. Senator, which is going to serve for 6 years. So everybody needs to also have December 1st and January 5th on their calendars and make sure that they have that as an election day. And the other thing is for everybody that's been planning on voting absentee, you can already get those applications in right now to apply for those elections. You can put them in the app. You can put them in the mail. You can email them. You can fax them if you still have a fax machine, and you can even just take them when you're over by Memorial, and you can take them to the elections office, because the runoff elections are absolutely some of the most consequential elections on the election cycle calendar.
And it's very possible that we'll actually have 2 Senate runoff elections. If you know, in the Purdue Ossoff race, if neither of them get 50% plus 1, then that too is going to go into a runoff. And, you know, given how close the the Senate is right now, we could end up having 2 Georgia Senate elections runoffs on January 5th that could determine control of the U.S. Senate. And so,
Yep.
it could, like Margaret said, they are very consequential, as are local elections and state elections. A lot of what happens at the federal level is what gets, most of the attention, but we end up, a lot of what actually affects us day to day is those local state races. And I'd say too that, kind of to the question that the viewer asked, about, is this going to change things kind of going forward? I think kind of in the same way that, a lot of us may not return to working in the office all the time. I think vote by mail and things like that are going to become a lot more popular, because now people are going to be able to see that, hey, we can do that, and it's pretty easy. And I don't have to go stand in these hours long lines. And, so there may certainly be a push, and, I think we probably should make that push to make vote by mail easier. And certainly, anything that can open up access to the ballot box for more people is better for our democracy.
So that was how I wanted to close out, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. What are your suggestions for how we can make voting easier for people everywhere, but in Georgia specifically?
Why didn't you ask this an hour ago?
Sorry.
He knew it would go on for a really long time.
Yeah, brevity is the soul of wit. So,
Go ahead, Derek.
If you look at states who conduct kind of the majority of their elections by mail, so there are some states who kind of conduct them almost 100% by mail. There's some who kind of do it in a hybrid fashion. I think you find that, voters in those states find elections to be much easier and much less stressful. I think that you certainly see voter participation rates increase substantially. I mean, in some of these states, they have, close to 80 or more % turnout rates. And, the harder you make it to vote, the harder it is for people to get out and vote, and the less likely they are to go and do it. So, I think we really need to push our officials to make access to the ballot box, just much easier than it is now.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Derek. I mean, voting should absolutely not be this hard. And if I had a dime for every time I say that every day, I would be a zillionaire. And it is incredibly frustrating because, people ask me all the time, is this voter suppression? And Derek and I have this conversation constantly. And we honestly believe that there are, at least I can speak for myself. I honestly believe that there is a very long, sordid, dark history in this state of intentional voter suppression that this state will never recover from, and will never be able to apologize enough for. That does still go on in many ways in this state. But there is also another side that is voter suppression, that is just sheer laziness, sheer incompetence, and sheer just absolute lack of planning. And that equates to voter suppression all over this state. And that is the part that drives me absolutely insane all the time.
Well, let's give an example. Margaret and I had this conversation where I said, do any of these locations where they have the drop boxes coordinate with MARTA stops or any kind of public transportation? And the answer was, that would be too simple.
Yeah, I mean,
why would you do that?
I mean, that's the type of stuff. Or, why does DeKalb County not have, more Why does it have a lot of blank space over in Lithonia and Stonecrest on that map that you showed? It's just, I don't know. Is that intentional? Is that not intentional? Is that just lack of planning? Is that, I don't know, but it bothers me. It's just, that's the type of stuff that I don't think that should be happening.
And it
But
even comes out as things like, poor poll worker training. I mean, I've been through poll worker training in DeKalb County in Georgia. If you don't know kind of much to begin with, you're not going to know a lot more coming out of that training. And so you end up having, some folks who are going to be really new at this, who don't have the knowledge about election law that they need in order to, deal with some of the more interesting situations that come up. Like Margaret was saying, there's really intentional voter suppression in terms of, we are actually trying to keep you from the ballot box. And then there is just sort of the voter suppression that happens through neglect and because people aren't held accountable for running poor elections or making it hard for people to vote. And that is another reason to ensure that you go vote, so that you're electing people who are going to make it easier for you in the future.
and it's just the part that just gets me is that, Derek and I created the GeorgiaVoter.guide simply because there was this gap. We shouldn't have had to.
Yep.
We literally should not have had to. I mean, the number of hours and sleepless nights that we have dedicated to this has been an absolute labor of love, but we literally should not have had to. I mean, why was this not already created by the state? Why was this not already, created years ago? I mean, it's just.
And educated voters are more likely to be voters.
Yeah.
So, and especially when there are a lot of little things to know, the more knowledge that you have equals the more power that you have, and also means that you're more likely to actually get out there and go vote. But if, you just got registered, but you don't really know anything about how voting works or, kind of the basics, then you're more likely to be intimidated and just go, maybe I won't do that.
Well, we will wrap that discussion up right there. I do want to thank Margaret Arnett and Derek Spranzi, who are the creators of GeorgiaVoter.guide. It's a great resource for people who want to know more about voting in the state. Also, our other guest today was our elections reporter, Logan C. Ritchie. You can find her work at DecaturishVotes.com. I don't want to spin up something conspiratorial, but it's interesting. The state website on COVID data typically updates at 3 o'clock every day, and they put out a notice today that said they weren't going to make the 3 o'clock deadline, and it's 7 o'clock, and they still haven't updated it. So that's kind of weird. So if you're interested in following some weird drama, check out the Department of Public Health website about COVID data. And God knows I will be, because we publish the numbers every day. Thank you all so much for joining our show today. Thank everyone who watched. We had great viewership today. Really appreciate it. Our show next week is going to be on this channel, 6 o'clock. We're going to have DeKalb County CEO Mike Thurman, which is really awesome. He's a very interesting person, top official in DeKalb County. He's going to speak to us about all sorts of things next Wednesday. I'm going to do my PSAs. Wear your mask. Get a COVID test. If you know how to get one and it's free, go get one. They're easy. I had one done. I'm negative. I'm glad I had it done. Get your flu shot. Please get your flu shot. And go vote. Go vote in the November 3rd elections. Do not wait. Go vote right now. Make a plan. Go vote tomorrow. Okay? Everyone have a good one. We will see you next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Margaret and Derek, for the work that you do. It's very important, and keep on keeping on. All right, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Bye-bye.